Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another Focus to Evolve book club discussion. I am Tana, and with me is my partner, Jason. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. This month, we are talking about the book, Tinker, Dabble, Doodle, Try. Unlock the Power of the Unfocused Mind by, it's Srini Pillay, right? That's how you
Srini
pronounce
Pillay.
it?
Yep.
Yeah. Have you been in contact with him? Am I just making this up?
No, I've had many conversations with him. I might even call him lightly a friend at this point.
Yeah. Friendly acquaintance for sure for you.
Go there.
I want to say, I don't feel like I'm making this up, but you're involved with so many fun people sometimes that I have to remember which fun people you're involved with. So this book is another one of those books that kind of weighs heavily in our training sessions. The idea of unfocused is something that both of us very heavily focus on when we're training people. And how has this book kind of affected you and what you do in the world, Jason?
It affected me because it opened a whole new universe and a whole new bolt on to our productivity offering. We were focusing on how to be very productive, and we had a lot of really cool things to say about that. And then all of a sudden, this guy, Dr. Srini Pillay, comes along with this book, Tinker, Dabble, Doodle. At least that's how I was introduced to him. And he says, hey, all this talk about focus is really cool, but you're missing almost half the story here. And that is the way the brain works, and the way your brain and neuro and body chemistry works is you also need unfocus. And let me tell you all the reasons why. So, okay, I thought this is interesting because I haven't stepped back. I mean, I know a lot about work hard. I know about recovery cycles, both for athletes and for mind and things like that. But this was a bit of a different take. And from a guy like Srini, he's a PhD. He's a Harvard psychologist, I believe. He's a neuroscientist. I mean, this was a brain-based guy saying, hey, you need to take a look at something more than you are. Keep what you got. It's amazing. It really does work. But I got something else that you can bolt onto that. And so now we teach the importance of unfocusing and entering that default mode network activation in your brain. And so it changed me because, to answer you specifically, because it allowed me access to a much more powerful creativity center. So that's what happens when you unfocus. Your whole brain gets to participate. You get a kind of like a town hall meeting for your brain when you unfocus. Your old brain, your new brain, your right side, your left side, your unfocused and your focused attention all get to kind of have their say. And that's to the point where you kind of trade in your Dixie cup of creativity and you trade it in for a 55-gallon drum bucket of creativity. And the ideas that have come from practicing what he goes through in this book are profound. And so now we bring his book up in every one of our trainings. It's one of the highly recommended books because most people are not focused on this in our Western hamster wheel, shallow working, sprinting world.
Right. Yeah, I remember. So Jason and I first met each other because he did a training session with me at the financial firm that we used to have. And I don't know that at that point you were talking much about unfocused. I think it was still just kind of the let's be productive stuff. And then when I encountered you again a year later, you had put that in. And I felt like, oh, this is something special now. Like it was cool and it was useful, and what you taught and what we teach with productivity was all really great, but it felt like it was still rooted in that like industrial era time. Whereas when you started incorporating the unfocused with it, it felt like it was rooted more in where we're going as a species. Because I just feel like we are going away from like the let's churn them and burn them and replace them and they're expendable, and more into, okay, how do we holistically work together so that we can all participate and excel in all of the areas of our life. And it just felt like that one edition just upped the ante on what you and now we can offer to people. Because I swear, Jason, there are some people who, when I get to the unfocused part of the presentation that we give them, their eyes just kind of light up and they almost seem confused, like, oh, you're the first person who's ever told me that I should just stop being busy and for at least a few minutes a day. Like, you're the first person who's told me that there are benefits to that, not only for me, but to like the universe. Because I mean, honestly, when you're doing your task list and you're being efficient and you're being productive and you're doing, and you're planted firmly in your prefrontal cortex, I mean, all of that is great, but all of that is replicable basically in other people. You can teach people how to schedule those meetings or how to update that spreadsheet. You can teach artificial intelligence how to do those. But the things that you get to when you're unfocusing, the genius ideas, and they don't have to be like worldwide genius, like I just invented the light bulb. I mean, it can be me sitting outside and all of a sudden the thought comes into my mind, like, you should talk to your grandma more often. And then me putting that into my system for actually getting it done and creating a deeper bond with someone who's important to me. Like, that in and of itself is a genius idea, because it brings more love into the world. And what is more genius than that? So it's just, I'm so thankful for this book and that you stumbled upon it however you did, because it brought what we do with people to just another level that I appreciate so much.
Yeah. And it was the Authentica group that actually introduced me to them. Like Greg Lucas over there in the Authentica group. They have really interesting connections with people everywhere, but I remember, we can't turn this into a quantum level conversation, but humans have this perception that we are our thoughts and we control our thoughts. And that's actually, when you really sit with that, it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, yes, you can have your own thoughts and generate your own, but a lot of thoughts, it's like, go ahead, stop seeing, like keep your eyes open, but stop seeing. You can't, or stop hearing. You can't stop hearing. Thoughts are that way. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, stop thinking. Watch how that goes. Those thoughts just keep on coming. You're not doing them. And so where are they coming from? I don't know. Let's not get into that. That's almost the spiritual conversation, but they're coming from somewhere. Mm-hmm. And believe me when I tell you, they're not yours. A lot of them float. I don't know where, how. Maybe it's in the quantum field. Maybe it's in the Higgs field. I don't know where it is. But being open to that and setting your mind to be the receiver, as it does in this book, it is shocking. The ideas, like you said, talk to my grandma. Well, what a great idea. Okay, I'm going to express love, going to send love. I mean, that's amazing energy to send out, and that has some pretty interesting side effects. So I think it's important when you do, if anyone listening is interested in this book, go into it with an open mind, very open mind, because not everything's working the way we think it does. I just read that water has 70 known anomalies that no scientific field can address, like weird things. Why does it expand when it freezes, being one of them? Why does it accelerate by 900 times when put through a carbon nanotube? 900 times. That means 20 mile an hour turns into 18,000 mile an hour water flowing as soon as it goes through a carbon nanotube. Nobody knows why. So there are all these things in the universe, and us humans think we know so much, and we know so comically little, actually. So go into this with a really open mind and just have fun with it, because believe me, the creativity that pops out the other end is just awesome. So big thanks to Dr. Pillay for this work.
Yeah, he mentions in his book that focus is your brain's flashlight, but unfocus is kind of the area around the periphery. Like, there's a whole broad world, 360 degrees up and down, that if you're just looking in the beams of the flashlight, which is focus, which is doing your task and being on task and just thinking what you think you're supposed to be thinking. But if you just step back and do the unfocus, and for me, unfocus, I look at unfocus as me just stopping the doing, stop being a human doing, start being a human being, kind of checking in with myself and saying, okay, what do I most want to do right now? And if that is me feeling that my body is tired and like I could take a nap, then it's taking a nap. If I feel like my body wants to move, then it's going for a walk. If I feel, oh, I really want to be with my son right now, then it's playing with him. It's just me following whatever I, in this present second, would most want to do, and then just going and being in whatever activity that is, which could be very little activity at all.
Yeah. That's interesting. So that's how you do yours. And there, again, there's no wrong way to do unfocused, right? I mean, you got to listen to your heart, your mind, your body, your soul, and do it that way. And he gets into all that in the book. But mine is I like to go and be curious and playful. That's kind of what rang true to me. I like to go out, I kayak, I'll yoga, I'll play didgeridoo. I don't know. I'll just do really what creativity is calling me. Sometimes I binge on YouTube videos that are interesting and just kind of get creative and fun with it, or watch short sci-fi movies. You know, there's just a lot of things. You got to go follow your own. When we talk about this in sessions, people inevitably ask me, well, what exactly do I do to unfocus? And I say, that's your journey. I will tell you what I do, but I can pretty much promise it's not going to align with you. And the thing you'd mentioned there about the focus versus unfocused, you know, and in the book, he mentions that focus is an instrument, but unfocus accesses the real full realm, the wonder. And instead of just listening to one instrument, you get to listen to an entire symphony. And what's the difference there? So just imagine going to somewhere and listening to one instrument versus an entire symphony. That's literally what's going on when you exercise, when you undulate between focus and unfocus. So he's not dogging on focus. He's saying, do the whole thing, have unfocus. We all used to rest a lot back in the day. In fact, a lot of cultures in the Mediterranean still have their rest time. You know, they've kept it in their culture. Us Americans certainly did not. You're looked down on in corporate America if you take one blink. That's starting to go away. So that's the great news. People are starting to wake up a bit to this. I don't remember if it was in the book or where the heck. I've done a lot of research in this now that Srini introduced this to us. But I remember someone was following professional athletes around to understand their recovery cycles and how they are such top performing people in all areas. It was a pretty wide encompassing study, but they noted how boring it is because they do perform and they train hard as heck. I mean, it's just, they push the limit. But then when they're not training, they're the boringest people. They literally sleep almost the rest of their waking hours, or they just watch movies, they rest, they eat really well. You know, the top performing ones do. And it's not like out on yachts partying, doing Lord knows what. It's not their life. They'll do that on occasion, don't get us wrong, but the boringness and the recovery time and the unfocused from the intensive training is huge in their world. And if you're a business person and you want to be a top performer, why do you think that doesn't apply to you? Like, you've got to rest, you've got to recover, and you have to enter unfocused time so that your brain can work with its old limbic self, its intuitive self, and the new self, and the left self, and the right self. So that's what happens when you unfocus. It's an interesting new meta skill, actually, that we forgot about. And now we're remembering, thanks to folks like Dr. Pillay.
Right. And you and I, in our training sessions, we show people our calendars to give them examples of how we batch our days. And we show people there's a good chance that any given day, you and I have like a 2-hour chunk on our calendars that just says unfocused. And it's not from like 6 to 8 p.m. or 8 to 10 p.m. It's usually plunked right in the middle of like our work day, because you and I take it so seriously, because we're trying to like build a business and help people live their best lives and live our own best lives. And in order to do that, we need time to be just with our thoughts and be creative and get into like juicy creativity. And we can't do that if we're just like sending emails all day and responding to things all day and just doing whatever comes into our orbit kind of all day. We make deliberate time. And I think people seeing two people like us who teach efficiency, but then show that there is a 2-hour chunk in the middle of our work day hours that, oh, they're serious about this. And maybe you in corporate America can't take 2 hours to just say, I'm going to unfocus today, but can you take 5 minutes, and can that become 10 minutes? And can we not see that as just like wasted time? Because if you give yourself a 30-minute walk in the middle of the day, who's to say that's not the time when you come up with the, oh, I have this pain point at work. What if you do this? Like, what if you do this different activity in order to solve that pain point? Like when I worked in corporate finance, there were days when I was so on top of like my tasks for the day that I would have time where I could just like breathe in the afternoon, and I wasn't daydreaming necessarily. It was kind of a focused day. It was a focused unfocused, where I was like, okay, what at this job is annoying to me? And what are the ways that I could make it not annoying to me? And what are the ways that I could systematize making it not annoying for other people? And during those like unfocused periods at my corporate job, I was actually solving bigger problems within myself and within the office and the organization at large, just by stopping for a little bit and unfocusing in order to kind of recharge my creativity and think of things in a different way. So there's like wasted time. There is a way to unfocus and benefit the culture of your employer, because honestly, everybody can be taught the other things that you do all day, but if there are genius ideas laying within you and you don't have the time or the quiet to be able to hear those genius ideas, then your employer is missing out on the best part of you, because they're not getting that juicy, only you can solve this problem kind of information out of you, because you're just like moving emails around all day.
Thank you for that. It's perfectly said. And also, hey, business owners out there, if your employees aren't getting the juiciest, best part of only you because you're too busy, you're hurting your own company too. So it goes, yes, it's an employee thing. It's also an owner thing. And it's a life thing. Like, hey, parents, hey, brothers, hey, sisters, hey, kid, these ideas are not just work ideas. These are humaning. These are becoming like alpha, awesome humaning ideas. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a great point. One thing he talked about was the cycles of, he talked a little bit about education and how he wishes there were a new thing being taught in school. And that is how to fail and enjoy the process of failing and enjoy the learnings of failing. So he wishes that you would set a class up where a teacher was extremely compassionate and offer challenging things that he knew the students at that level were going to probably fail at, and have it 20 times, have them fail 20 straight times in a row. And how do you deal with failure? How do you do failure? Mm-hmm. What a beautiful meta skill that would be. Mm-hmm. Instead of popping out kids that are afraid to get a B because they're going to lose their scholarship, they go into it with this new meta layer of how to handle failure, which happens daily. In my life, it does anyways. Like I handle micro failures daily, but it's because I'm out on the outer ledge trying some interesting new things. Mm-hmm. Of course, I don't enjoy the feeling you get when you get your big no or a rejection, but I very quickly just default to, okay, thanks for that lesson, God. What do we got? What did I learn? And that was, beat into me after probably 20,000 hours of listening to a lot of really good folks out there talking about the importance of this. Mm-hmm. But focusing on failure will result in one thing. Kind of unfocusing and being easier and bigger with it kind of opens up what failure means. And basically it helps you in the end. It makes you stronger, makes you smarter. As long as you're kind of staying unfocused on it, mm-hmm. not too tied to the results, and kind of play with it. It's weird. Play with failure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. Learn how to play with failure. Learn from it. Take it seriously, but go easy. Have some fun with it.
Yeah,
we're all going to be dead soon. You're not dead yet. Just enjoy it.
Yeah, I have a 5-year-old son, and whenever he gets down on himself because he doesn't know how to do things because he's 5, I tell him, no, baby, you didn't fail. There's only success and story. Like, it's either you do exactly what you set out to do, or you have a story that you get to tell someone else about how you overcame this thing. So
This is a great one.
there's no failure. It's just success or story, either one. And honestly, the stories are the things that will bring more people into your orbit that need you and need to hear the story behind your failure. And that's how you show vulnerability. That's how you show other people that they can be vulnerable. That's how we elevate each other. So honestly, the stories are somewhat better sometimes than even the success, because who wants to hear the I started my business and I immediately was successful and I made all the money that I ever wanted to make. Like, not a lot of people want to hear that. They want to hear, oh, I started this and yeah, it was kind of a pain the first year, but I did this and then it got a little less painful, and then I did this and it got a lot less painful. Like, they want to hear the Joseph Campbell, like, story of a hero. They want to hear your story, not your success necessarily.
No one would relate to an immediate success because there's really no such thing. I mean, people have gotten lucky, let's face it, really lucky. And so bam, overnight they got 100 million in the bank. Pretty rare. No one's going to relate to it. But the just completely embarrassing yourself 1,000 times from trying 60 different things that all your family and friends knew was a dumb idea. That's what people want to relate to, because that's what I'm going through. That's what, it's what we're all going through, is we're just trying to be ourselves here in this world. Mm-hmm. Another point he came up with this whole get unfocused idea, because it does run in the face of culture. Mm-hmm. He talks about the importance of it being tied with a purpose or with your purpose. So don't just go out and watch 15 episodes in a row of Desperate Housewives of LA or something because it's unfocused. I'm not doing my work. No, you gotta tie it with something. Like when I do kayaking on the river, my intention is I'm just gonna go out there and be with nature, because that's where the Schumann resonance is. That's where flow state happens in nature, quite literally. It's the Earth's vibration. I don't even really know what that means. I just know that it feels good. And when I do it, I feel recharged. And my wife recently read somewhere that the sound of birds and watching birds makes people as happy as money does. What an interesting thing.
I'll attest to it.
Yeah, my gosh, I love watching birds on the feeder. I don't know why. What a weird thing, but I really do. And so there you go. Have unfocused with purpose. So don't just go out and play with at total random, even though sometimes that's probably good. But this is not a distraction thing. This is like a growth and relaxation thing, or something like that. Maybe have a purpose like that, where it can be non-specific, but it should at least lean into the growth category somewhere from a very high hands-off standpoint. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I try to live all of my waking minutes by design and not by default. So I'm not, and I don't always win at that. I like to try, and the things that feel like they're just almost automatic in a not me choosing it kind of way, like social media or Netflix for a really long time, or just things that it feels like it's not necessarily my decision to stay in these areas as long as I maybe would, because the algorithm has like figured out our brains and it says, let's make this an unending scroll so that they are on here all the time and our advertisers get as much of their eye and their brain space as possible. Like, I don't want to default into just being a mindless scroller, or Netflix just like taking my entire day. I want to make sure that, okay, if I want to look at social media, yep, I'm going to design how much time I want to give to that. And why am I here? What's my purpose in this area? If I want to watch Schitt's Creek on Netflix, I want to kind of limit it or kind of constrain it so that my real unfocused time is more like, okay, what do I want to design with my life? So it's not me trying to do even in my unfocused time, but there is kind of like a design. How do I want to grow during this time? So yeah, I like his and your highlights on let's just not default into the things that are easy to scroll or that are kind of just easy and right there and turning off our brains so that we don't actually get anything out of this unfocused time. Let's at least rejuvenate our bodies and our brains during this time. And is there anything else that we need to get out of this time?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of, I guess, the essence of the book. I think we've kind of captured it. And I know that you and I could get in, I mean, we could go all day long on almost any one of these points. I also have some fun little link ups I was doing in my mind with, okay, why does unfocus kind of all of a sudden introduce optionality, whereas you thought you were stuck before?
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing. Like if here's kind of like the end game for business folks, actually in any realm of your life. If you feel like you're stuck, believe me, the most important thing you could do is unfocus. Learn how to unfocus. Read this book. And if you got a tough problem at work that seems like, man, we are out of options. No, you're not. You have billions of options still. But you can't do it with your little prefrontal cortex, your new brain. You got to do it with your whole brain. And that's the big value here. I mean, it kind of reminds me of, speaking in subatomic terms, you have Heisenberg's principle of uncertainty pretty much says that the stuff that makes up everything you know, like all of the molecules are made up from atoms. Atoms are made up from subatomic particles. Well, when you look at electrons, they're neither here nor there. They are everywhere and they are here at the exact same moment, depending on the observer. They're not the ones being, the observer is being, and then the wave turns into particle. Look it up, Heisenberg's principle of uncertainty. You live in a magic universe, whether you like it or not. And your awareness brings things to existence. It turns wave into particle at the electron level, at the atomic level. That's the truth. So I kind of think I think like that, and I'm thinking, focus is when it's a particle, like we're focusing on things, so things are locked and they look like things. Unfocus kind of makes it back into wave. And so if you kind of think about it, it's like quantum optionality all of a sudden happens and reawakens. It all turns to wave and options at the time of unfocus. So you unloosen, you untighten it, and it starts flowing again. Things start opening up, options happen. So there you go. It's like the reason I think this book resonated so deeply with me is because right away I thought, whoa, maybe this is how to access quantum optionality immediately. And for me, it has been like that. I've been able to get through some pretty interesting issues by simply not trying to do it. Like good old Yoda, trying fails. And this kind of digs into the why behind it. So maybe it is a quantum thing. Maybe it's an access to open things up, to crack open the grid. So it really is a direct tool that has immediate impact, unfocused, no matter what your little human egoic, I'm talking to myself here, your little egoic mind thinks. It doesn't know very much. You just got to keep reminding that. And so that's my final statement on the book and why it mattered so much to me, is I think it opens quantum optionality immediately. What a great tool.
It feels like unfocus is the place where, because oftentimes I feel like as humans, and me especially, I feel like I'm not necessarily in my body the majority of the day. I'm just these like swirling thoughts the majority of the day, and my consciousness is just in these swirling thoughts. And when I see birds outside, I all of a sudden like drop into my body. Or when I'm trying to unfocus, I all of a sudden drop into my body. And I'm no longer the past and future swirling thoughts. I am now the now. And that's why I like unfocus so much, is because it's the time of day when I feel like, oh, I'm not just these like swirling thoughts anymore. I'm not living in that space that feels like it's almost outside of myself. I am within my body right now, and I'm paying attention to it. And spiritualists will tell you that once you're in your body, and like when you're in the now, that's the only place where like the divine meets like the present. Like it's the only place where they intersect. You can't find it in the past. You can't find it in the future. And unfocus is just that point in my day where I drop into my body again. And I realize, okay, this is real. And this isn't just a thought. And there are birds right there. And I'm enjoying my life right now. So it's a really important book for our practice. And we highly recommend it if you feel like you are just running on empty all day and not able to access new and creative thoughts. You just feel stuck. Like this book has been very profoundly helpful for both of us and for our clients, and we highly recommend it.
Perfect. Nothing more to say. Well, thanks for your mind on this one, Tana. Let's hope that a lot of people pick this book up because it's tremendous.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.